Hello, hello, my slimes. These are going to be my recommended champions to climb the ladder. This is kind of geared towards the lower end of the ladder. This is mostly going to be below diamond. Before we get into the video, let me tell you something about myself. I am a professional mid lane coach. I coach the #1 team in the Polish Ultraliga. I am a challenger mid laner and a challenger top laner. So I have a decent amount of experience. I've been playing League of Legends for about 10 years now and have been challenger most of the seasons. If you guys enjoy the content, please subscribe and let me know what you think in the comments, or just leave a like or leave a dislike if you don't like it. This is the general impression that I've gathered throughout a lot of hours of coaching, and also by looking at a lot of lower MAR games and by having a look at win rates of champions. So let's get into it, shall we? The first champion is going to be Aelin Soul. Aelin Soul at the very moment is by far the most broken mid laner for lower MMRs. This right here is Aelin Soul's win rate all the way from Iron up to Platinum. The only point where Aurelion Soul's win rate really starts to fall off a little bit is once you reach higher than Emerald. But basically, if you're below Emerald, Aurelion Soul is probably the best mid laner that you can play. Aurelion Soul plays in a very slow manner, a very methodical manner. You just sit back, you farm, you play for your ult, you get 2 items, and then you one-shot everyone. That's going to be the general trend of this video of these champions. The champions are going to be a little bit slower because that is the style that is best for lower MMRs. Why is that? Well, it's because low elo players don't really know how to end games. All of a sudden, even if you get a 10 kill advantage, your bot lane doesn't really know how to push that advantage. You want to go to the side lane? Oh, let me apply pressure, guys. And then your team gets caught mid lane, right? And then all of a sudden the game extends by 10 minutes. Not great if you are playing a champion like Zed or something, right? Because you can very easily get outscaled. Aurelion Soul doesn't have that problem. You don't get outscaled. You do the outscaling. This champion, generally speaking, does very, very well. So these are going to be the runes that you're going to take. You're going to be running Comet, practically speaking, always. The reason for Comet is it allows you to go for some pretty solid trades during the laning phase. The idea isn't that you're going to win lane, because let's be honest, Aurelion Soul doesn't win lane. Unless the enemy you're playing against is literally fingerless, then you don't win the lane. So the idea behind Comet is don't lose lane very hard so you can kind of scale a little bit faster. You might notice that we're going to be taking absolute focus. The reason for that is cooldown reduction is not actually very useful on Aurelion Soul. His Q is basically just a low cooldown anyway, and your E is only really used to get stacks. And your ult is basically not going to be used off cooldown, so you don't really need cooldown reduction. Magical Footwear and Biscuits, or Presence of Mind and Coup de Grace. The main reason the main differentiator behind these two runes, secondary runes, is basically just if you run out of mana. If you like spamming a lot of spells, then go for Presence of Mind. If you want to be a little bit stronger in lane and ramp a little bit faster, go Magical Footwear and Biscuit Delivery. For the build, you're going to be taking Rylai's first item, and then you're going to be running Liandry's second item. You're not going to take Tear. This is the main reason why you might want to try running Presence of Mind if you're one of those players that struggles with mana during the laning phase. Tear is not a very good item on Aurelion Soul. He doesn't need it. He gets a lot more benefit from just going Rylai's first item, incredibly strong spike, Liandry's second item, incredibly strong spike, and then you can run Shadow Flame for extra damage, Hourglass if you need a defensive tool, a Death Cap if you just need a lot more damage, or you can run a Banshees or a Void Stick if you need that as well. In terms of your boots, Sock Shoes, again, you don't need cooldown reduction, so no reason for Ionian boots. Merc Treads, if the enemy team is very CC heavy or very magic damage heavy. Generally speaking, I like Merc Treads if the enemy mid laner and jungler are both AP, then I'll generally speaking run this. Next on the list, well, I'm sure all of you knew it was coming. Brand. I am the Brand salesman. Brand is incredibly good at dealing with tankier team compositions, and he plays lane in a very simple manner. All you do is you press W on the wave, and then you press E on the wave, and then you one-shot the wave, and then you can roam and take over the map. You also scale quite well. All of us know that Brand, despite going 0-10 in the game, will pick up 2 items, and then all of a sudden he will one-shot your entire team, and you'll be like scratching your head like, I thought this guy was 0-10. Why did he just one-shot my entire team? Yeah, that's why we play Brand mid lane. Now imagine if you don't go 0-10. Incredible, right? Electrocute. These are the 2 rune pages you have, Electrocute or Arcane Comet. I personally prefer Electrocute. The reason being is you can press W and auto-attack someone and it procs Electrocute. Your passive counts as 1 individual attack, which means you just have to hit either 2 spells or a spell and an auto-attack on someone, and that procs Electrocute. Some people like taking Arcane Comet. This is mostly just against the mid-range or long-range matchups. If you're against something like a Syndra or Orianna, Arcane Comet might be helpful to try to stop the bleeding in the laning phase. Same reason behind Aelin Soul, right? Just try to be able to bully them a little bit. But Brand, I'd highly recommend you try him if you want to scale very well and kill tanks, and also do quite well in lane. He has a pretty strong laning phase. You're only going to be running one build on Brand. You're going to be taking Sork Shoes. Brand has very high base damage. You're basically always going to be running them. And you're going to be running Liandry's into Rylai's. Again, you might notice a trend that these two items are incredibly strong on champions that don't need mana because, well, they just give you straight damage, right? And Brand doesn't need mana because the way his passive works is actually if you kill any unit that is on fire with your passive, you refund quite a lot of mana. That's why you don't really run out of mana on him, so you can spam a lot of spells. But Liandry's gives you a massive upgrade. Brand, practically speaking, only deals damage once he gets his Liandry's. So build that first and then get into your Rylai's afterwards, and then you just start blowing up everyone. And I promise you, you'll have a lot of success with this. Next, we have Vigar. Vigar has recently received some buffs. I love this champion. I was the #1 ranked Vigar in North America about a year and a half ago when I got Challenger there for the first time. I love this champion. I love his style. I love everything about him. The main thing to keep in mind is Vigar has so many builds that he can go depending on the correct situation and depending on the game state, right? I have just given you 2 of his builds here. Mainly Rod of Ages, Sereths, and Deathcap. This is your normal build if you're playing against a normal team composition where no one really outranges you extremely hard. Vigar's biggest problem is getting outranged and getting on top of people, you know, putting people inside of the box. Something that the United States are very good at. That's his biggest problem. So if you're against champions with long range or a lot of like terrain control, you might want to opt into this range build, which is Rocket Belt, Sjorry, and Deathcap. I know. You might be thinking, wow, Espen, you must have been smoking a whole lot of crack to come up with that build, but I promise you, it is actually good. You run Rocket Belt, Swifty Boots, Sjorry, and Deathcap, and then you can either take Deadman's Plate. I know it sounds crazy, but it gives you a lot of movement speed, so it's good. Or you can opt for something like a Crypt Bloom if you need some magic penetration, right? But these are the main 2 builds that you're going to be running on Vigar. Vigar is just incredibly good at scaling, and he's very good at dealing with lower MMR players because they don't really know how to punish you in the laning phase. The main thing I'm going to say about Vigar is try not to walk up when you have your E on cooldown. That is the biggest mistake that I see people make. They just walk up when they're on cooldown. Just play the laning phase slowly. Put a couple of points into your Q, try to poke the enemy laner with your Q, and then when you hit level 8, you put 2 points into your W so you can WQ the melee minions, and then you're smiling. Then you get a lot of stacks, and then you push the waves, and you roam, and you scale, and you become a monster, and you put everyone in the box like you're the United States government, and then you're just smiling. I highly recommend this champion. He's probably one of my most suggested picks of this patch, especially after the buffs. Next, we have Karma. Yeah, I know, guys. I know, Karma's not fun to play against, nor is she really fun to play as. Unfortunately, she is just the Ionian atomic bomber. If you have ever played a laning phase against Karma and you've had the misfortune of even getting like slightly within range of her and you have just been hit in the forehead with a fat man absolute Ionian QRQ combo, then you know that hurts and it's basically impossible to dodge because for some reason Karma's RQ is the size of the Grand Canyon, so you can't dodge it, so you just take it straight to the forehead. Karma is very strong in laning phase, she can push waves very well, she scales shockingly well despite the fact that she's an enchanter and a lane bully. She does a lot of damage in teamfights with her ult Q combo, so keep that in mind, right? The main build you're going to be running on Karma is practically speaking only one. You're going to take Comet because your Q slows so you can consistently proc Comet. You're going to be going Gathering Storm, your AP ratios are pretty good, and Scorch isn't really necessary to win lane. Cheap Shot and Ultimate Hunter. Ultimate Hunter, so you can have your ult up more frequently. You want to get basically an ult Q off every time possible in fights in the late game, that's why you take that. And the build you're going to be running, yippee, only one build, as opposed to Vigar, who has 8 million builds. The builds you're going to be running, Malignance, lower cooldown on your ult, and also procs off of your ult Q, and basically ult W as well, right? But ult Q is the main one. Horizon Focus, it's around your ult Q, and then Death Cap to just get that absolute blasting session damage. Then you can run some defensive items afterwards, like a Banshees or maybe like a Cosmic Drive for some cooldown reduction if you want to go on a little bit of a Cosmic Drive. All of those are possible, but these are your 3 main items. Yeah, those are my recommendations for mid lane champions. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I'm sure you will disagree with me. Remember, this is all subjective. This is just my personal opinion from observing a lot of lower MMR games and also from doing a lot of lower MMR coaching. But hopefully you guys enjoy. Have a good one. See ya. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.